So I'd imagine for you, as for like a lot of people who start questioning wokeness, you probably said something small like, hey, I kind of don't agree with you on the white people thing. And then they immediately started shoving you as hard as they could out.
Yep. That's exactly what happened. So I'll tell a quick little story. I was working on a project called the Groveland Four back in Florida, and it was about these 4 black men had been wrongfully accused of sexual assault. And there was a documentary that we were showing, and I was trying to get all these college and high school kids to come and say, this is America. This is what they do to black people. They shove them through the criminal justice system, even when they've done nothing. And in the background, Brett Kavanaugh gets accused of sexual assault, and that whole firestorm starts happening. And I'm working on this project, watching Brett Kavanaugh just completely break down on camera. And I brought it to my boss and I said, why are we treating these two situations differently? Why is he completely just getting obliterated by the media and by the work that we're doing here? Yet when these 4 black men get wrongfully accused, we're giving them all the grace in the world. And he said, well, he's a white man and I don't care. And he clearly is the frat boy type, so he did it and he should hang.
Wow.
Yeah, when I tell you the most dramatic rhetoric you could possibly hear, I was hearing day in and day out. I don't know how I didn't leave sooner, but eventually it was just, you can't stand it.
I kind of feel like the left hates mixed race people, like woke people. Like their perspective is, I've experienced this personally, where they're like, we should have segregated spaces, right? The POC and the non-POC. And then, if you walk up to them and you're like, what if I'm both? They're like, get out, because then you're still white. And in your story, what I'm imagining is, like, you've got white family. Him saying he's white, I don't care, let him hang. It's like, yo, you realize, like, when people would say that stuff to me, I'm like imagining my family. I'm like, I don't like that.
Right.
Like, you're talking about my family too.
Which was interesting because I had conservative people in my family who are sort of like the Fox News conservatives watching that all the time. And then I had my mom who was totally on board of, F white people. And I just happen to be a white ally, but also I'm part of the problem. So my brain was just going crazy all throughout my childhood.
Did you feel like she owed you an explanation? Did it hurt your sense of identity?
I just have conversations with her now and say, in the future, maybe we don't do this to children. Maybe we don't teach them that they're victims from like the age of 8 years old and tell them that there's some boogeyman out to get them, but he's invisible, and see how that goes.
And how did other people in your community react when you were like, I don't know that I totally get behind all these beliefs anymore?
I was completely just ousted from the organization, gone, left, never talked to again. And of course, later, about a year or so later, I started making videos and those sort of blew up and just people were pissed.
One story I talk about every so often is that during Occupy Wall Street, there was this dude, it was a white dude and a black dude. And black dude was like, I'm going to run across the street to go to the bathroom. And the white dude, they were friends. He was like, oh, hey, would you grab me a cheeseburger when you're over there? And the black dude went off and he was like, excuse me? And he was like, oh, can you grab me a cheeseburger when you're over there? I'll give you money. And the black dude just went off on him, started yelling at him. And then I asked him later what happened. And then he said, do you see how racist that was? And then I was like, he asked you to get him a cheeseburger? And he's like, yeah, like I'm his boy, like going to get him food or something. Man. And I was like, dude, my friends ask me to grab him stuff from the store all the time.
There's a phrase, you fly, I'll buy. That's what we used to say. Go to Taco Bell, I'll buy.
What I think happened there was that this dude internalizes the racism and sees everything through a lens of you're being racist towards me. So something as simple as my friend asked me to grab him food because I was already going that way turns into a racist attack on him.
Yeah.
You're absolutely
right.
right.
And I think white guilt is something that people are introduced to at a really young age. I saw a friend over the weekend and she's moved to a new city and she told me that she specifically picked her yoga studio because it was in the historically black neighborhood and she liked that it was owned by a woman of color. And if that's your preference, totally cool. And then she said, I also think it's really important that they offer classes for free to black people only. And I think it's better because I should be paying for it. It's okay if I have to pay and other people don't. And I was like, you're describing discrimination. You know that, right? But, what am I supposed to say to someone who feels like this is part of her moral duty to the world? You have to, like you're saying, kind of approach it calmly.
This is what I think people who agree with us need to understand. There's no mistake. They're racist. They define racist in a different way, but who cares the way they... Look, I'm not trying to win an argument with them over what words mean. To me, my basis for racism is that they want racial discrimination, that they believe certain races are inherently one way or another, or something like that. Whereas I'm kind of like, if I went to a restaurant and they had signs about like only serving white people, or somebody said to me that they liked a restaurant because it catered to white people and offered free food to white people, I'd be like, that's kind of messed up. I don't like that. And if they did the same thing for Mexicans or black people, I'd be like, that's not okay. I don't like that. That's kind of lame. And the woke, they want the segregation. Yep. Like it's fascinating when I talk to people and tell them about how Dearborn, Michigan had did you see this one, the POC and the non-POC digital events they did?
I've seen a lot of places doing this
Tons of this stuff. And they're like, it's a good thing. And I'm like, it's a bad thing. I'm like, well, if you don't like it, you're racist. And I'm like, dude, I don't care what word you use. I don't like what you're doing, and I'm just going to stay away from you.
And that's the smart thing to do. I mean, Ibram X. Kendi, who we all know and dislike, talks about, the way to fix past discrimination is present discrimination, and how that lands with anybody, I just don't understand. And I think a quick thought exercise that anybody can do is to sort of look at these headlines and what these woke people are doing and swap out people of color or black or Hispanic for any other race and see how you feel about it. See if it's truly racist. And it always is.
Yeah.
It always is.
Yeah, it's crazy. I think part of it is people feel like they are doing the right thing by making things, by overcompensating.
Yep.
By saying like, oh, well, we'll pay more now because at the time you were wronged. And I think we forget that we can acknowledge that past wrongs were committed without needing to, push a bunch of other people down in order to make this unstable system we're trying to build up on. It doesn't make any sense.
Isn't it funny though how there's an overlap between these people? They're the same people who support war with Ukraine. They're the same people who think everybody should bend the knee to vaccine mandates. Like, what's up with that? I think it's because, I was thinking about I saw these memes about how the Christian right were mean and they hated people, and I'm like, yeah, that's not been my experience, for the most part. But I wonder, because I know that they exist, and I wonder if what it really is that there are a group of people that, or I should say a certain amount of people tend to be zealous and mob-like. They don't actually believe anything. They just do whatever the dominant social group says, and they adhere to it with force and aggression. And at one point, when this country was dominated by Christians, those people claimed to be Christians and gave them a bad name. Now that the country is moving towards secularism, these people are now the same people they've always been, but now just along with the woke, giving them a bad name and making them look like garbage. But the problem is they're the prominent ones that are pushing this stuff. Obviously, there's like regular people who are like on the left that think racism is bad, but the dominant voices have all become these like despicable, weird authoritarians.
And I think they make it so such a gray area where it's like, well, your instincts on what is racism and what feels wrong to you is wrong. You don't have a true understanding of this because you don't have this knowledge and context that we, especially in the realm of academia, say you must understand and go through to really get.
Yeah, and I think another underlying factor with why they do things like the vaccine mandates and jumping into war with Ukraine, when I was working for the left, there was this constant idea of radical compassion. So you identify a problem, you identify what you think would be the compassionate thing to do, and you do that to the most radical extent that you possibly can, which means hopping into war with Russia, which means mandating vaccines for everybody. If you want people to be able to come into the United States and immigrate here, we need open borders. Everything is always the most radical form of policy they can think of.
Radical compassion doesn't work, in my opinion. I tried it in 2006 on internet videos. It's like, what would Jesus do with this technology? He'd connect with everyone he could and spread the gospel, listen to them, connect with their eyes. And I was doing it, and it became so exhausting. And a lot of very weak people would connect with me, and I was like, I'm not turning anyone away. I'll talk to anybody. And so it broke me. Like the people that were busted up psychologically were infecting my mind with busted up psychology, and I was becoming busted up. And I realized it's not sustainable, this radical. You need to let people fix themselves. You need to maybe create an environment where it's easier for them.
Some people can't be fixed.
But that's up to them. I cannot fix them. Right. I can only give them an opportunity to fix themselves.
It's coddling. It's what's happening right now. And that's what I recognized a lot when talking about being biracial in America so much as, what do we need to do for you? What's hard for you? How can you get into school? How can you get a job? And you can switch out the race thing for gender or sexuality, but that's constantly the underlying factor is, how can I be a savior towards X community?
It's funny that I think there are different conspiracy theorist factions that all will blame one group of people for their problems. So like you've got the groups that's, you know, supposed to be like the globalists, you know, the more Alex Jones oriented conspiracy theory types, not referring to him specifically, but you've got people who hate Jewish people and blame them for all the problems. You've got the woke who blame white people for all the problems. You've got Occupy Wall Street that blames the 1% for all their problems. It's like, if you want to figure out where you fit in, which group do you hate the most? Blame for all the problems, and you found your friends.
Right.
To me, it's creepy because obviously this planet and society is extremely nuanced, and it's not so simple to say there's one group that's causing all the problems. There aren't. There's war, there's countries, there's cultures, there are ideologies. Within countries and within races, there's different ideologies that are attacking each other. But of course, the woke, they've become the corporate dominant, and they blame white people for their problems.
Our minds are so simplistic. I mean, it's so weird that we've reduced ourselves down to things like race and gender, which are just things that you can see to the human eye. And then we've just decided, oh, because I can see it, that must be the rule of thumb here. And there must be one ultimate villain in every single case for every single problem. It's unbelievable how simplistic our brains work.
I don't like the black and white thing because we're not black and white. That's very obviously a wrong way to describe things. It's too simple. It doesn't function.
It is.
Thanks for checking out this segment from the Timcast IRL podcast. But if you want to check out the full show live, tune in Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. And if you want more special access content, head over to timcast.com and become a member. Your membership helps sustain this company, keep our journalists employed, makes this show happen, and you will get access to exclusive members-only segments of the Timcast IRL podcast, and there's a massive library to check out. So again, go to timcast.com or tune in Monday through Friday at 8 p.m., and we'll see you all there.